That dirty clump of mud isn't worth a single penny. Take this $50 bill and get the hell out of my VIP parking spot." The deafening roar of a V12 engine cut through the chilly morning air, echoing across the concrete walls of the underground garage. The massive, polished black tires of a custom Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled forward without an ounce of hesitation. With a sickening crunch, the heavy vehicle brutally ran over a tiny, imperfect clay statue, grinding it into the cold pavement. That wasn't just a clump of mud. It was a handmade birthday present. 5-year-old Lily had stayed up past her bedtime the night before, her tiny hands covered in dust and water, working tirelessly to mold that little figure for her dad. She had been so proud of it, carrying it carefully in both hands all morning. Now, it was just a flattened, unrecognizable mess, mixed with parking lot grime and tire tracks. Lily let out a heart-wrenching sob. She dropped to her knees, staring at the ruined gift, then wrapped her small arms tightly around her father's leg, hiding her face as the tears streamed down her cheeks. Right at this moment, as you watch someone's pure, innocent hard work get trampled on by pure arrogance, I want you to make a promise to yourself. If you have ever been looked down on because of what you wear, what you drive, or how much is in your bank account, I want you to scroll down and type this exact phrase in the comments. I choose resilience and will never surrender to disrespect. Let that be your personal declaration today. The father, David, didn't scream. He didn't lose his temper or slam his fists on the hood of the $1 million car. He just stood there, wearing a faded khaki jacket, a plain white t-shirt, and scuffed leather work boots. His eyes, calm, but incredibly sharp, locked onto the heavy-set man stepping out of the driver's seat. That man was Richard, a notorious real estate billionaire known for his ruthless business tactics. Richard was the kind of guy who built his empire by bulldozing anything and anyone that stood in his way. He operated on one very simple, very toxic rule. Money cleans up every mess, and poor people should always get out of the way. Richard puffed on a thick, imported Cuban cigar, sending a cloud of pungent smoke into the crisp air. He looked David up and down, a cruel, mocking smirk spreading across his face. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or did seeing actual cash just short-circuit your brain?" David remained completely silent, his expression unreadable, standing as solid as an oak tree. "A guy like you probably hasn't held a crisp 50 in your entire life," Richard sneered, flicking his cigar ash directly onto the ground near David's boots. "Pick it up. Go buy the kid some cheap Play-Doh from the dollar store. And next time, use the public sidewalk. Don't block the path of people who actually contribute to the economy." Richard didn't even have the decency to hand the money to David. He let it slip from his fat, ring-covered fingers, watching the wind catch the green bill and carry it across the dirty asphalt. He wanted to watch the poor man chase it. He wanted to see him humiliate himself for a quick buck. A truly great father knows how to turn a storm into a lesson. If you are out there grinding every single day, trying to build a solid foundation for your family, and refusing to let a harsh world break your spirit, hit that subscribe button right now. Join our community, because we are walking this path of growth together. Richard turned his back, laughing a deep, guttural laugh as he walked toward the grand glass entrance of the National Convention Center. He felt like a king, but he was completely unaware that his arrogant little stunt was about to cost him the biggest business deal of his miserable life. David didn't even watch the billionaire walk away. He slowly dropped to one knee, ignoring the dirt and oil on the garage floor, and gently pulled Lily into a warm, protective hug. "Hey, look at me," David said, his voice surprisingly steady and incredibly soothing. He reached out and wiped a tear from her soft cheek with his thumb. "You don't need to cry over people who don't understand the value of real effort." Lily sniffled, her little shoulders shaking as she pointed a trembling finger at the crushed clay. "But Dad, I made it just for you. It's totally broken. It's ruined. Listen to me, sweetheart," David told her, making sure she looked him directly in the eyes. Failure, or getting pushed down by someone who thinks they are bigger than you, is never the end of the story. It is just a stepping stone. We are going to take this mess, and we are going to make something even better out of it. Carefully, David pulled a clean linen handkerchief from his jacket pocket. He didn't sweep the broken pieces into the trash. Instead, he meticulously picked up every single crumb of the crushed clay. If Richard had actually bothered to look closely, he would have noticed something strange. There were brilliant, glowing streaks of azure blue mixed into the dull brown earth. It wasn't normal clay. David wrapped the pieces up gently, folding the cloth as if he were handling solid gold. Then, he stood up, his knees popping slightly, and walked over to where the $50 bill had landed against a concrete pillar. He picked it up. Richard was standing just inside the glass doors of the convention center lobby, chatting with a security guard. He had paused specifically to look back, waiting to see if the guy in the cheap jacket would scramble for the cash. David caught Richard's eye through the thick glass. He didn't glare. He didn't yell obscenities. He just smiled. It was a calm, knowing, almost pitying smile. Right next to the entrance doors, there was a transparent acrylic donation box for a local children's hospital. Without breaking eye contact with the billionaire, David smoothly folded the $50 bill in half and dropped it straight into the donation slot. Richard's face immediately flushed a deep, angry red. He hated that. He absolutely hated when people he considered beneath him refused to play the role of the victim. If you love seeing a bully's money used against their own massive ego, take a second right now to write in the comments, "I choose resilience and will never surrender to disrespect." Let's drown out their negativity with our strength. David took Lily's small hand in his, turned around, and walked away with his head held high, leaving the billionaire fuming behind the glass. What Richard didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have realized in his blinding arrogance, was that the blue-streaked clay he had just intentionally run over wasn't just some cheap dirt from a craft store. It was a highly classified, one-of-a-kind, unrefined azurite mineral compound. And tomorrow morning, at the most exclusive, high-stakes government auction in the country, Richard was going to find out exactly how much that mud was truly worth. The following morning, the atmosphere inside the National Convention Center was electric. We aren't just talking about a wealthy crowd. This was the absolute top tier of the global elite. They were all gathered for one very specific reason. Behind heavy velvet curtains on the main stage sat a newly excavated, centuries-old fresco, a masterpiece of ancient history with an estimated opening bid of $300 million. Richard walked through the front glass doors like he personally owned the building. He was wearing a custom-tailored Italian silk tuxedo, his hair slicked back perfectly, and a fresh, unlit cigar resting in his breast pocket. He had already called his PR team on the drive over, instructing them to draft a press release about his historic, record-breaking purchase. He didn't just want the painting, he wanted the headlines. He wanted the world to know he had enough liquid cash to buy history itself. He strolled past the flashing cameras of the local press, flashing an arrogant, practiced smile, and walked straight up to the private VIP entrance. He didn't even bother looking at the two federal security agents standing firmly by the velvet rope. He just flicked his solid platinum bidding paddle toward them, expecting them to step aside immediately. They didn't move an inch. "Excuse me," Richard barked, his fake smile dropping in a fraction of a second. "I am Richard Sterling, bidder number 1. Get out of my way." The taller of the two agents, a man with a coiled earpiece and a face like carved stone, looked down at a digital tablet in his hands. "I am sorry, Mr. Sterling. Your paddle has been deactivated. Your name was permanently removed from the registry about 10 minutes ago." Richard actually laughed. It was a harsh, grating, ugly sound. "Are you completely out of your mind? My accounts have been fully vetted. I have over $1 billion in verified assets sitting in escrow. Nobody in this building has the authority to cross my name off a list. I do." The voice didn't come from the security guards. It came from behind the heavy, intricately carved oak doors of the main auction floor. The doors swung open slowly, and the ambient noise in the bustling lobby seemed to just evaporate into thin air. A man stepped out into the hallway, flanked by the event's chief organizers, 2 museum directors, and a serious-looking legal team. He wasn't wearing a faded khaki jacket or scuffed leather work boots anymore. He was wearing a razor-sharp, midnight blue suit, and pinned precisely to his left lapel was the unmistakable, solid gold seal of the Supreme Advisor to the National Heritage Foundation. It was David. Richard took a heavy step back, his brain violently struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. "You," Richard stammered, the color draining from his face so fast he looked like he might pass out right there on the carpet. "You are the guy from the parking garage, the nobody with the bratty kid." David stopped a few feet away. His expression was exactly the same as it had been the day before in the freezing garage. Calm. Steady. Completely unbothered. But today, that calmness carried the terrifying weight of absolute authority. When you see a bully suddenly realize that the person they stepped on is actually the one holding all the cards, it is a beautiful, satisfying thing. If you are watching this and you believe that true intelligence will always defeat blind arrogance, take 1 second right now to write our community's pledge in the comments. I choose resilience and will never surrender to disrespect. Stand firm in who you are, because the truth always comes out. "You have a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world actually works, Richard," David said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast marble hallway. "You think money allows you to bulldoze through life. You think it buys you a free pass to treat people like dirt." David motioned to an assistant standing quietly to his right. The assistant stepped forward, holding a polished silver presentation tray. Resting carefully on top of a white velvet cloth were the crushed, dirt-covered remnants of Lily's little clay statue. Richard looked at the tray, then looked back at David, completely bewildered and growing angry again. "What is this? Are you seriously pulling this stunt over a piece of dollar store mud?" "That is exactly your problem," David replied, taking one slow step closer. "You only look at the surface. You never bother to understand the actual value of things. This isn't cheap mud. It is a highly volatile, completely unrefined azurite mineral compound." Richard blinked, the words not fully computing in his panicked brain. "So what?" "So," David continued, his tone turning ice cold. "That $300 million fresco sitting on the auction block right now, it has severe structural degradation on its left panel. The only way to safely restore it, the only material on Earth that perfectly matches the original ancient pigment, is this specific azurite compound." David pointed a steady finger at the ruined pieces on the tray. "My daughter and I were transporting the final test batch to the preservation lab yesterday morning. It took my team 6 grueling months to synthesize it. And you, because you couldn't be bothered to park your car 50 feet further away, intentionally crushed it under the tires of your Rolls-Royce." The reality of the situation hit Richard like a physical punch to the gut. His mouth opened and closed repeatedly, but no sound came out. "Because the compound is destroyed," David explained, speaking loud enough for the gathering crowd of reporters and elite guests to hear. "The restoration of the fresco has been delayed indefinitely. The artifact is now considered highly unstable. So no, Richard, you aren't bidding today. In fact, you are banned from every federal auction in this country for the rest of your natural life." David leaned in, just a fraction of an inch, "and you can expect a very large, very public lawsuit from the Department of Antiquities by the end of the day for the willful destruction of a national heritage resource." Richard's knees literally gave out. He stumbled backward, catching himself clumsily against a marble pillar just to keep from hitting the floor. The man who thought he could buy history had just been completely erased from it, all because he couldn't show basic human decency to a father and his little girl. David didn't wait around to hear Richard's pathetic excuses. He didn't gloat. He simply turned his back on the ruined billionaire and walked away. Down the hall, past the security perimeter, little Lily was sitting on a plush leather sofa, swinging her legs and looking at a picture book. When she saw her dad walking toward her, her face lit up with a massive, gap-toothed smile. David walked over, scooped her up in his strong arms, and kissed her gently on the forehead. They walked out of the building together, leaving the chaos, the flashing cameras, and the shattered billionaire far behind them. Life is going to throw people like Richard in your path. People who try to make you feel small just so they can feel big. But your value isn't determined by their bank account, their luxury cars, or their loud opinions. It is determined by the knowledge in your head, the fire in your heart, and how you choose to stand back up after things fall apart. Never let anyone put a price tag on your dignity. Before you go, leave your mark on this video one last time. Drop it in the comments below. I choose resilience and will never surrender to disrespect. Thank you for being part of this journey. Keep pushing forward. Keep growing. And I will see you in the next story.